So I just want to take a second to show this. Since we're on the subject of Gavin Newsom and the public's response to him and the mismanagement crisis that continues to devastate California in so many different ways, um, the Daily Signal put this little video together that I'm about to show you, interviewing victims of the wildfires that have lost everything and their response to the governance of Gavin Newsom, Mayor Karen Bass. And there is a huge unified effort, if anything, that's going to bring California together at a time like this. It's going to be this natural disaster that could have easily been manageable, maybe not prevented, but manageable if we had the proper response by elected governors and elected mayors that are supposed to respond to the people within their constituency, but failed to do so. So here's what these people had to say.
State is in trouble and you're not going to make it better and you've got to go. I can't wait until you're recalled or resign or worse.
I'm in Altadena, California, where many residents lost homes through the Eaton fire. We asked residents at a community meeting what's happened to their homes and what they think about the elected leaders who allowed things to get so out of hand. How have the fires affected you?
We were under mandatory evacuation with less than an hour to get out of our house.
I just moved to Altadena 3 weeks ago, bought my first house.
Our entire home, 30 years we've been there. Gone. Every possession.
A lot of us had to evac. Grandma's house went down, unfortunately.
I have to evacuate from my house.
Do you think the city was appropriately prepared for this fire season?
No.
I mean, they defunded the fire department, I think, a couple of years ago. So they talk about a lot of this on the news, so it's kind of sad what's going on in the state.
This is a recurring issue that we're always having. It always seems like, we're 10 steps behind of something we've been having to deal with for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Well, they need to be more proactive. They need to do forest management. They felt miserable. Okay? They didn't have the resource. They didn't have the planning.
We developed in California a bunch of really stupid policies over the last 30 years where we stopped timber cutting, we stopped prescribed burns, we stopped doing vegetation control, and that made this inevitable. I mean, that's the whole thing. The National Forest was established to do those things to make this impossible, and when we allowed the National Forest to stop doing that, we made it inevitable.
What would your message be to the elected leaders who let it get to that point?
They should resign.
Why is that?
Because they are not doing their job right. And the governor is not here. Where is he? He should be here. I don't see him here. Do you see him here? So if he's not here, it's not for us. We don't need him.
You're such smug, arrogant, ridiculous people. My message is you're incompetent. I don't know why you got elected, but our state is in trouble and you're not going to make it better. And you've got to go. I can't wait till you're recalled or resign or worse. So that's it. They've got to go.
Yeah.
But our state,
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. And this is why I give sympathy and respect to California. In regards to, I've seen so many people on social media saying, well, this is what you get for being a blue state, voting Democrat. The same way that a lot of the shit libs, unfortunately, go after North Carolina for being a red state. You have to get out of that notion. You have to drain yourself away from the left versus right, the red versus blue, because in the end, and I've stated this before, in the end, no matter who you vote for at this point, because of just how grotesque corruption is, just how eroded the policy measures are, if you look at where the money comes from, if you look at where the response comes from, in the end, no matter who you vote for, there's going to be corruption. There's going to be this kind of malfeasance. And whether you're in California, whether you're in North Carolina, whether you're in Ohio, whether you're in Hawaii, no matter where you are in the United States, and even around the world, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve the horrendousness of the representatives that are supposed to be responsible, fiscally responsible for that state, for that territory, for those people. And as they stayed there, where's Gavin Newsom? Where's Gavin Newsom? You know, at least when, and going back many, many years ago, at least when 9/11 happened in New York City, the mayor, Rudy Giuliani, who in many regards is a corrupt bastard himself, there's many things to say about him, but at least with Rudy Giuliani, he pretended to at least be with the people. He pretended to do that. Where's Gavin Newsom in this? I have not seen Gavin Newsom partake in going through and surveying the damage. He just goes on to television programs, or he goes on to Pod Save America to save his political career. That's all he's doing right now in response to this, to the ongoing California wildfires that could have been easily managed if he actually had the regards to respond properly in coordinates with the ongoing droughts, with the Santa Ana winds. These are all the ingredients needed to cause a massive blaze, and Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom were completely unprepared for that regard. So here is a video of the White House where Gavin Newsom called in, I'm assuming on Zoom or Skype, to Joe Biden. And utterly, this is just you're supposed to represent the state of California. When you're the governor of whatever state you're part of, or if you're a premier of a province, you are held responsible to represent the people within that state or within that province. That is your duty, that is your job, that is your job description as a public servant. But Gavin Newsom, God only knows why he got this career. God only knows why he wants to get himself into politics. Maybe because he's an ego-fragile maniac, sociopath. Who knows? But this does not represent California at the slightest. But here's what he said to Joe Biden and the White House in regards to the wildfires, in regards to many individuals within California, looking into the fact that you specifically mismanaged and mishandled this whole effort and has caused utter devastation to the state. Listen.
I ask you, we've got to deal with this misinformation. There were hurricane force winds of mis and disinformation, lies. People want to divide this country, and we're going to have to address that as well. And
so your state's on fire. People are displaced. Shelters are overcrowded with people that have lost everything. Everything. And he calls into the White House to talk about misinformation. I kid you not. This makes me speechless. Your entire state is on fire. People have lost everything in these devastations. And you're talking about misinformation. That's not representing California. That is representing you. That is you trying to save your political ass because you know that you're going to get ousted. You know at some point, California is going to kick your ass to the curb at some point. So, we got to deal with the misinformation at a time of a natural disaster. At a time of a natural disaster. No, what you need to be doing is responding accordingly to put out as much of this fire as possible. Which, if it wasn't for the LAFD coming forward and saying, screw this, I'm not dealing with, city coordinates and crap. I'm going to deal with the blaze. I'm going to serve the people. If it wasn't for that, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse. And the fact that he's Skyping in to the White House with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris while the state's on fire. We got to deal with misinformation. Donald Trump's being mean at me. Because apparently talking about water flow, which Trump inevitably started this conversation many, many months ago. In fact, many years ago in his first presidency. We need to bring the flow of California water down to the south. How is that misinformation? That we need access to water in a dry area. Oh my God. Such heinous misinformation, disinformation. What kind of lies is he spewing? Anyway, there's more of this.
It breaks my heart as people are suffering and struggling that we're up against those hurricane forces as well. And that's just a point of personal privilege that I share that with you because it infects real people that are out there, people I meet every single day, people the mayor's been meeting with, and they're having conversations that are not the typical conversations you'd have at this time. And you wonder where this stuff comes from.
Yeah, it's not the typical conversations. Nobody has a natural disaster and trying to salvage what little they have left and just only talks about, well, the spreading of misinformation. I don't like what people are tweeting. I don't like what Instagram posts are available. There's too many people still on TikTok, and now there's this red note thing. Oh, the horrendous measures of information. Yeah, these aren't the regular conversations that people are having because regular people have nothing. Regular people are dealing with this. They're dealing with your horrendous policies, with your horrendous measures. But all you care about is your goddamn self. That's what all this is in regard to. Nobody cares what people are posting on the internet about the wildfires. What they're dealing with is the fires themselves. Is dealing with the fact that they have lost everything. Everything. Because of scumbags like him. And scumbags like Karen Bass. That could have been easily managed had they gone through the proper channels. Had they went through and actually organized properly to deal with a state that has frequent wildfires and prepare accordingly. Like, make sure the reservoirs are filled. Make sure there's flow of water to California. Make sure that you don't defund the fire department. Make sure you don't go to Ghana when you know that there's hurricane winds coming in a dry area that you've had a drought for the last 8 months. So, Gavin Newsom, obviously talking about disinformation again at the White House. Here he is on Meet the Press on NBC. And he's trying to look for the better opportunity out of this because now, well, you lost everything. I'm going to lose my political career. I'm doing everything to stop misinformation because apparently that's the horrific disaster of California. Here he is on MSNBC, or Meet the Press on NBC, talking about developments. Talking about how there's going to be an opportunity to build LA 2.0. Now, could be touching a bit in the conspiracy theory tank, but listen to what he says and how many times we have kind of heard this verbiage before when it comes to natural disasters. How many times have we heard from like Lahaina, from parts of BC, where they've mysteriously shut off the water to conserve it at an active blaze, and then all of a sudden, well, don't look too glum. I know you lost everything, but we're going to rebuild for the better. Listen to this.
Call for him to come out, take a look for himself. We want to do it in the spirit of an open hand, not a closed fist. He's the president-elect. I respect the office. We have a president of the United States that within 36 hours provided a major disaster declaration over a text. We had support from the president of the United States, Joe Biden, with 100% reimbursement, all the resources you could hope for or imagine, constant communication.
But he just wants to remind you that he's a great granddad. I just want to remind people that, yeah, devastation and wildfires, but I'm a great granddad, folks.
And I'd like to extend that to the president-elect. I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the Delta smelt in reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That
No, they weren't. No, they weren't. The LA fire chief herself testified to you that they know that there was no water in the reservoirs. There's been a drought in California, in Southern California, for months, 8 months, 9 months. And then your mayor, when there's San Diego winds coming in and you've been in a drought for that long, knows that there's a potential for wildfires. She went off to Ghana. She went off on a personal spender over in Africa on your tax dollars while the state was on fire. But yet Gavin Newsom, because he is such a narcissistic maniac, because he's such a sociopath, has to continuously double down on handling the information of these wildfires. There's too much disinformation. I don't know anything about this Delta smelt. I don't know anything about water reservoirs coming into California. You know, he doesn't know anything about, the last 10 years that people of California viciously voted to bring water from Northern California into Southern California, which is what Trump has been saying throughout all this. Hey, you got a bunch of snow and rain coming from the northern part that's going right into the Pacific Ocean. Why don't you bring it to the southern part where it's dry? So you're prepared for these wildfires. So it's not an increased drought situation every single time.
Information, I don't think advantages or aids any of us. Responding to Donald Trump's insults, we would spend another month. I'm very familiar with them. Every elected official that he disagrees with, very familiar with them.
We do know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation, to understand what was happening with that local reservoir. That was not a state system reservoir, which the president-elect was referring to as it relates to the Delta and somehow connecting the Delta smelt to this fire, which is inexcusable because it's inaccurate.
Well, that's why I'm part of this investigation, and I'm going to do this kind of David Caruso, Matthew McConaughey NPR voice. I'm going to do some ASMR to tell you that we're going to do some investigation into why there's no water in a tank. The investigation should have happened the moment your LA fire chief told directly that there was no water. There should have been an investigation on why in California, where the highest taxes are being paid, that there's no water in the fire hydrants. Why city services are being cut back. What are you paying your taxes for? What are you paying your taxes for at this point? If you're cutting back the fire department, and there's no water in the hydrants, there is no fire trucks. A lot of fire trucks are still in repair because all the mechanics had to be laid off because of your budget cuts. That should have been the investigation. Or how about sending that surplus off to the most corrupted nation in Eastern Europe? Where's that investigation? But now that everything's burnt to a crisp, you can see the charred rubble behind him. Yeah, we're going to do an investigation into why there's no water in the water facilities. And somehow this is claiming to go after misinformation. Oh my God. This guy couldn't be more a pain in the ass to people. And again, this is why I feel so sympathetic to the people of California, because regardless of what state you're in, regardless of anything, you don't deserve this. Whether you're in a red state or a blue state, these people are monsters. And there's a certain type of personality, there's a certain type of mental disorder of people that go into politics, that they have to be this kind of narcissistic, neo-nefarious kind of evil psychotic sociopath. And this is why the Democratic Party highlighted him as a possible replacement for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. They actually referred him by name as taking over, leading the Democratic Party. And now after all this, now that celebrities have also shouted in anger of the dismay that this governor has put placed on them, he has no future whatsoever. He has no future whatsoever. Unless maybe one of those developers, takes him up. Maybe it's one of those back alley business deals. Like, oh, once I'm done politics, I can join a development force, and then we can take on more properties that are damaged mysteriously from natural disasters. I can't go too much into detail because Gavin Newsom will probably pin me to the ground and saying, stop spreading disinformation. I don't want to be insulted at a time of need. Because apparently bringing water to California is an insult to Gavin Newsom. That's what a lunatic this guy is.